Hi, I'm Teresa and welcome to my channel. Today we're doing a video I'm quite excited for, and that's spooky queer book recs. Because, it's just the season. It's time. And it's woolly jumper weather, and I've got my little cat earrings, so I'm ready for the spooky season. Yes, it's only September. No, I don't care. And yes, we're gonna just get started, I think. These books, they're not all necessarily horror or, meant to be scary. A lot of them are just atmospheric or time of year, and some of them are supposed to be scary. We've got a mix. First up, I want to talk about Rory Powers books. I own Wilder Girls, but I don't have it with me, so I'm just gonna have to use my tablet and give you a picture. So, Rory Powers writes sapphic horror books. They're YA, I think she's got adults coming up at some point, and I've been wanting to read for a while, so I think I'm definitely going to pick up Wilder Girls sometime this year in the spooky season, just to get all the spooky joy. So yes, this one is horror and it's got body horror and such within it, and for all of these books I'd recommend checking out trigger warnings, and I'll leave a link to a trigger warnings database down in the description. So the Wilder Girls synopsis. It's been 18 months since the Raxter School for Girls was put under quarantine, since the talks hit and pulled Hetty's life out from under her. It started slow. First the teachers died one by one, then it began to infect the students, turning their bodies strange and foreign. Now, cut off from the rest of the world and left to fend for themselves on their island home, the girls don't dare wander outside the school's fence, where the toxins made the woods wild and dangerous. They wait for the cure they were promised as the tox seeps into everything. But when Bite was missing, Hetty will do anything to find her, even if it means breaking quarantine and braving the horrors that lie beyond the fence. And when she does, Hetty learns that there's more to their story, to their life at Raxter, than she could have ever thought true. So this one seems to maybe be a little bit on the nose with the current situation with disease and quarantine. So you might not be up for that this year, I understand. But all girls school, and this is meant to be like Lord of the Flies, but girls, and oh, it just sounds fun. And yes, sapphic main character, and I think there is an FF romance in this one, and I'm just very excited to pick it up. Next up is also by Rory Power, and that's Burn Our Bodies Down. So this one also just sounds very, very fun, and I can't wait to pick it up, though I don't have a physical copy yet. From the author of the New York Times bestseller Wilder Girls comes a new twisty thriller about a girl whose past has always been a mystery, until she decides to return to her mother's hometown, where history has a tendency to repeat itself. Ever since Margot was born, it's been just her and her mother. No answers to Margot's questions about what came before. No history to hold on to, no relative to speak of. Just the two of them, stuck in the run-down apartment, struggling to get along. But that's not enough for Margot. She wants family, she wants a past, and she just found the key she needs to get it. A photograph, pointing her to a town called Faline, pointing her home. Only, when Margot gets there, it's not what she bargained for. Margot's mother left for a reason, but was it to hide her past, or was it to protect Margot from what's still there? The only thing Margot knows for sure is there's poison in the family tree, and their roots are dug so deeply into Faline that now she's there, she might never escape. This book's got a lesbian main character but no romance, and I know there's a lot to do with corn. And that's all I know, just cornfields. So I'm definitely intrigued, and I like the idea of uncovering a dark family past and all that. Sounds very interesting. Next up is a book I've mentioned a few times before on my channel, and that's The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. This book's incredibly atmospheric and is a very spooky atmosphere, and that's why I think it's perfect for this time of year. And I think maybe the timing of the book matches up. I can't quite remember, but I remember it having autumn vibes, even if it's not set in autumn. So this follows a main character called Violet, and she's bisexual, and she's one of several point of view characters, but I'd say she's the main character. And she and her mother return to her mother's hometown, and there's some spooky stuff going on. And from the others' point of views, these are all the children descended from the town's founders, and they've all got some kind of ability, and these abilities give them almost the status of being gods, of being above everyone else in the town. Right now, as Violet returns, some murders are happening, people are being dragged into the woods by this thing called the Grey and just being murdered. So, you know, up to these dumb teenagers to try and stop that and figure out what's happening, and also Violet to figure out her own family history. And you've got a cat familiar, if anyone's interested in cats. I very much am. I love animal familiars in a book. Next up is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is a dark academia book, and it's one that I've not spoken about very much, though I did adore it when I read it last year. So this book follows Oliver Marks, and he has just finished serving a 10-year prison sentence for a murder he might or might not have committed, and when he is released, the police officer in charge of his case is talking to him, and he just wants to know, truthfully, did Oliver do it or not? And so Oliver is recounting the story. And so Oliver was at this quite prestigious theatre school or art school in the theatre programme, and the book takes place during his final year, where the typical roles played by each of his friends, I think there's about 7 of them, they're switched up, and this leads to rivalries and to fights and to just a lot of tension between the characters, and eventually there's violence and it leads up to the murder. And this book is just, it's dark and it's so good, and it's so good at building tension and atmosphere, and I just found the imagery incredible, and I found it very easy to visualise what was happening when I don't find that easy in books normally. But there's a Macbeth scene, and I can still see it playing out in my head even though I read it over a year ago. And it's very good, and there's lots of morality, and there's lots of Shakespeare if you know any Shakespeare. They go into detail about several Shakespeare texts in this book, and I'd studied most of them and kind of knew the basics of the others, which was very helpful. So I would recommend, when the plays are mentioned, even just reading a summary so you can understand why casting X as Y is a really big deal. Because when they posted who was playing what role in one of the plays, I remember going, oh shit. Because I just knew, you know, why that was such a shake up and why that was going to create so much tension and problems. Next up is another book that I've spoken about quite a bit on my channel, though not a lot recently, and that is Hideous Beauty by William Hussey. So this is a thriller, and that's kind of why I've included it, and I think it's got a bit of atmosphere that suits this theme. So this book follows Dylan and his boyfriend Ellis, and they have recently just been outed quite abruptly at the very beginning of the book, and then one night they're driving and they get into a car crash and they end up in a river, and Ellis dies and Dylan is mysteriously saved. And so this book follows Dylan trying to figure out who let Ellis die and saved him. He's being sent pages from Ellis's sketchbook, which was almost like a diary. It's very, very personal, and he didn't show it to anyone. And he's also trying to figure out what was happening with Ellis before he died. He'd been acting mysteriously, and yeah, it's a good old-fashioned thriller, but with queer main characters, and it's just very, very fun, and I highly recommend it, though be aware it made me cry. It made me cry right at the start when Ellis died, even though it's on the back of the book that he died. But no, whatever. Apparently this book is just very good at making me cry and getting me emotional. Next up we have got Soccer Girls by Claire Legrand. This is another sapphic horror book, and I feel like it's quite well known. So I can't summarise this in a way that creates tension or interest, so I'm going to read the blurb. Who are the Soccer Girls? Marion, the new girl, awkward and plain, weighed down by tragedy and hungry for love she's sure she'll never find. Zoe, the pariah, luckless and lonely, hurting but hiding it, aching with grief and dreaming of vanished girls. Val, the queen bee, gorgeous and privileged, a heart made of secrets and a mouthful of lies. Their stories come together on the island of Sockhill Rock, where gleaming horses graze in rolling pastures and cold waves crash against flat cliffs, where kids whisper the legend of an insidious monster at parties and around campfires, where girls have been disappearing for decades, stolen away by a ravenous evil no one has dared to fight until now. I'm very interested to read this and to read the kind of dynamics between the girls. I don't think from this that they're necessarily friends, and yeah, it just sounds very fun, very spooky. I've heard that it is quite scary, and I'm excited to pick it up and just admire the cover some more. Next up is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. So Emily M. Danforth wrote The Miseducation of Cameron Post, which is one of the more famous sapphic books and one that I need to read very soon. I will, I promise. But this is the adult debut and it's a horror, and I am very intrigued. It sounds very good. This book comes out on the 20th of October this year, so it's a perfect book to pick up around the spooky season. The award-winning author of The Miseducation of Cameron Post makes her adult debut with this highly imaginative and original horror comedy centered around a cursed New England boarding school for girls. A wickedly whimsical celebration of the art of storytelling, sapphic love, and the rebellious female spirit. That's only the top of the description, and does it not sound incredible? It's got New England boarding school setting and a horror comedy. I don't know what that means, but I'm here for it. And oh, it just sounds very, very good. Our story begins in 1902 at the Burkant School for Girls. Flo and Clara, two impressionable students, are obsessed with each other and with a daring young writer named Mary McLean, the author of a scandalous best-selling memoir. To show their devotion to Mary, the girls establish their own private club and call it the Plain Bad Heroine Society. They meet in secret in a nearby apple orchard, the setting of their wildest happiness and ultimately of their macabre deaths. This is where their bodies are later discovered, with a copy of Mary's books laid beside them, the victims of a swarm of stinging, angry yellow jackets. Less than 5 years later, the Burkant School for Girls closes its doors forever, but not before 3 more people mysteriously die on the property, each in the most troubling way. Over a century later, the now abandoned and crumbling Burkant is back in the news when wunderkind writer Merritt Emmons publishes a breakout book celebrating the queer feminist history surrounding the haunted and cursed Gilded Age institution. Her best-selling book inspires a controversial horror film adaptation starring celebrity actor and lesbian it girl Harper Harper, playing the ill-fated heroine Flo opposite B-list actress and former child star Audrey Wells' Clara. As Burkant opens its gates once again, and our 3 modern heroines arrive on set to begin filming, past and present become grimly entangled, or perhaps just grimly exploited, and soon it's impossible to tell where the curse leaves off and Hollywood begins. A story within a story within a story, and featuring black and white period illustrations, Plain Bad Heroines is a devilishly haunting modern masterwork of metafiction. So that's a very, very long synopsis, but a story within a story, 2 timelines, over 100 years apart, lots of sapphics, lesbian main character. Just sounds very good, and I am very excited to pick this one up when it comes out. Next up we've got Beyond the Ruby Veil by Mara Fitzgerald. This is another 2020 release. It comes out on the 13th of October, and I'm also very, very excited for this one. A dark, queer YA fantasy that's perfect for fans of 3 Dark Crowns series and Wicked Saints. After Emanuela Ragno kills the one person in Nokia who can create water, she must find a way to save her city from dying of thirst. Emanuela Ragno always gets what she wants. With her daring mind and socialite schemes, she refuses to be the demure young lady everyone wants her to be. In her most ambitious move yet, she's about to marry Alessandro Morandi, her childhood best friend and the heir to the wealthiest house in Nokia. Emanuela doesn't care that she and her groom are both gay, because she doesn't want a love match. She wants power, and through Ali, she'll have it all. But Emanuela has a secret that could shatter her plans. In the city of Okia, the only source of water is the Water Crea, a mysterious being who uses magic to make water from blood. When their first bruise-like omen appears on their skin, all Okians must surrender themselves to the Water Crea to be drained of life. Everyone throughout history has given themselves up for the greater good. Everyone except Emanuela. She's kept the tiny omen on her hip out of sight for years. When the Water Crea exposes Emanuela during her wedding ceremony and takes her back to be sacrificed, Emanuela fights back and kills her. Now Okia has no one to make their water and no idea how to get more. In a race against time, Emanuela and Ali must travel through the mysterious blood-red veil that surrounds their city to uncover the secrets of Water Crea's magic and find a way to save their people no matter what it takes. So I'm including this one on this list just because it gives me spooky vibes, and the time of year it's coming out, I just think it's a perfect book to pick up for the spooky season. The authors described the main character as a tiny chaos lesbian, and that's what sold me before I actually read the synopsis. She's also described it as a love letter to unlikable girls and chaotic sapphics, and I love that, and I love the unlikable female character, and I think it's going to be really interesting to read and to see a morally grey character and a sapphic Achillean solidarity between Emanuela and Ali, and yeah, I'm just very, very excited to pick it up. Next up, we've got one of my new favourite books of all time, and that is The Scapegracers by Hannah Abigail Clark. And this book is so good, and it's so perfect for this season. So this book follows Sideways Pike, who is a teenage lesbian witch, and Sideways is very much an outcast, and she's quite happy being an outcast, being a weirdo. And this is until the popular girls at her school invite her to their Halloween party to perform a spell, and the girls just end up bonding, and they're solving a kind of mystery together, and I don't know, they're doing so many fun things, like going to the cinema, trying to get Sideways a girlfriend, planning parties, and they're also navigating all this magic and covens and witchcraft and some enemies, and oh, it's just so good, and it is truly the perfect book for the spooky season. The atmosphere is just perfect, and you've got this lovely gothic, ornate writing, lots of kind of dark imagery, but within a teenage voice, and it just works so well. My favourite part of the book is the friendships and just the closeness of the girls, their support for each other. It's completely unflinching, and it's just something I want to see way more of in young adult books, particularly because I feel like there's a bad habit within the young adult age bracket of pitting girls against each other, and this book just says no, we're not doing that, and I really, really love it and admire it for that. But yes, this book's full of the occult. It's got lots of weird shit. It's got lots of spooky shit. It's perfect for Halloween. I cannot wait for it to be out so that more people can pick it up and hopefully love it as much as I do. Next up, we've got The Reckless Afterlife of Harriet Stoker by Lauren James. This book came out recently, and it's one I've already read and loved. So this book follows your main character Harriet, and one day when she's exploring the abandoned halls of residence at her university, she trips and falls and quite tragically dies. And then she wakes up a ghost, and she is surrounded by the ghosts of the other students of the halls who all died like 25 years before, just all in one night, quite mysteriously, no one knows how. And she finds herself in this society being taken in by them, but she's also desperate to leave. She's realised that they're all stuck there and she is stuck there because that's where she died. But she wants to go home, she wants to check on her grandmother, and she wants to see her parents' ghosts because they died at her grandmother's house. And she's quite morally grey, she's very determined to leave and she will do anything it takes. And also lots of cool ghost shit, and Harriet is pansexual, and you've also got a couple other narrators featuring a gay character and a bisexual character, and it's just very, very cool and very casually queer, and I just really, really enjoyed it. It's got mystery and thriller elements as well, and it's just a perfect ghost story to read this spooky season. Next up, we've got Surrender Your Sons by Adam Sass. I'm not entirely certain about including this, but from my understanding it's a thriller and it's quite dark, and I think what better time to read a dark thriller than October and the spooky season. I've said spooky season so many times, I don't have another word for it though. Connor Major's summer break is turning into a nightmare. His SAT scores bombed, the old man he delivers meals to died, and when he came out to his religious zealot mother, she had him kidnapped and shipped off to a secluded island. His final destination? Nightlight Ministries, a conversion therapy camp that will be his new home until he changes. But Connor's troubles are only beginning. At Nightlight, everyone has something to hide, from the campers to the converted staff and cagey camp director, and it quickly becomes clear that no one is safe. Connor plans to escape and bring the other kidnapped teens with him, but first he's exposing the camp's horrible truths for what they are, and taking this place down. So, although I'm not certain how autumnal it is, it just seems quite just dark and gritty, and I feel like that would make a perfect book to pick up this time of year. Next up, we've got Mooncakes by Suzanne Walker and Wendy Zhu. So this is a graphic novel, and it's set around Halloween. You can see by the cover. You've got a witch, you've got a werewolf, it's very exciting. A story of love and demons, family and witchcraft. Nova Huang knows more about magic than your average teen witch. She works at her grandmother's bookshop, where she helps them loan out spell books and investigate any supernatural occurrences in their New England town. One fateful night, she follows reports of a white wolf into the woods, and she comes across the unexpected, her childhood crush, Tam Lang, battling a horse demon in the woods. As a werewolf, Tam has been wandering from place to place for years, unable to call any town home. Pursued by dark forces eager to claim the magic of wolves and out of options, Tam turns to Nova for help. Their latent feelings are rekindled against the backdrop of witchcraft, untested magic, occult rituals, and family ties, both new and old, in this enchanting tale of self-discovery. So this book is full of queer characters, and your main pairing is a sapphic character and a non-binary character, and they use they them pronouns, and I'm just very excited to read this one. And it just seems like such a cute story and just perfect for this time of year. Cannot wait to pick this one up. We've got Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. I've mentioned it a few times before how very excited I am to pick this book up, and it comes out, it's already out in the United States, and it comes out on the 1st of October in the UK, and I'm so excited, and it really is just going to be the perfect spooky season read. Yadriel has summoned a ghost, and now he can't get rid of him. When his traditional Latine family has problems accepting his gender, Yadriel becomes determined to prove himself a real brujo. With the help of his cousin and best friend Maritza, he performs the ritual himself and then sets out to find the ghost of his murdered cousin and set it free. However, the ghost he summons is actually Julian Diaz, the school's resident bad boy, and Julian is not about to go quietly into death. He's determined to find out what happened and tie up some loose ends before he leaves. Left with no choice, Yadriel agrees to help Julian so that they can both get what they want, but the longer Yadriel spends with Julian, the less he wants them to leave. So I am beyond excited for this, and I've just read rave reviews all around. It sounds incredible, and it's set around Dia de los Muertos, so it's this time of year. Not quite, but coming up for this time of year. And it just, I've been wanting to read more Latine books, as I said, or will say in an upcoming video. I'm not sure what order I'm picking them out. So this is a lovely place to start with a book I'm very excited about, and with a trans main character as well, and I just so excited. The final book I want to talk about is These Witches Don't Burn by Isabel Sterling. This is another one I'm hoping to pick up this spooky season. I'm giving myself a hell of a TBR. I'm not going to make it through all of these. But as a title suggests, this follows some witches, and I'm just very excited, and it seems, again, perfect for this time of year. Hannah's a witch, but not the kind you're thinking of. She's the real deal, an elemental witch with the power to control fire, earth, water, and air. But even though she lives in Salem, Massachusetts, her magic is a secret she has to keep to herself. If she's ever caught using it in front of a read, non-witch, she could lose it, for good. So Hannah spends most of her time avoiding her ex-girlfriend and fellow elemental witch, Veronica, hanging out with her best friend and working at the fly-by-night cauldron selling candles and crystals to tourists, goths, and local Wiccans. But dealing with her ex is the least of Hannah's concerns when a terrifying blood ritual interrupts the end-of-school year bonfire. Evidence of dark magic begins to appear all over Salem, and Hannah's sure it's the work of a deadly blood witch. The issue is, her coven is less than convinced, forcing Hannah to team up with the last person she wants to see, Veronica. While the pair attempt to smoke out the blood witch at a house party, Hannah meets Morgan, a cute new ballerina in town, but trying to date amid a supernatural crisis is easier said than done, especially when the attacks on Salem's witches become deadlier by the day. Isabel Sterling's delightful suspenseful debut is equal parts sweet romance and thrilling mystery. With everything she loves on the line, Hannah must confront this murderous villain before her coven, and any chance she has with a new girl, is destroyed. This sounds so good, and I love that it's got the mystery elements, and you've got the romance, you've just got the Salem setting and the witchcraft, and I love modern witchcraft, like with the scapegoaters, just witches existing and being all chill in the modern day, and I just love how that's interpreted, so I'm excited to see how this is. That is my list of queer book recs for the spooky season. I hope you found something you would like to pick up. I've just created a very long TBR for myself because I've really not read the majority of these, and I've been saving them for this time of year, but now I've got too many and it's all a bit of a disaster, to be honest. I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and I'll see you in another video soon.